Excited to get this guy on here, Armando Salguero of Outkick.com, echoing a lot of what we've been saying on this very program, that it's going to cost, at the very least, 3 first-round picks for the Arizona Cardinals to make a major trade down from 4th overall, basically outside the top 10. And the Minnesota Vikings, kind of the worst-kept secret in the NFL, wanting to get up those draft boards. Armando, great article. I encourage everybody to go read it if they haven't already at Outkick.com. But what have you found most interesting as far as deep diving the Cardinals or maybe the Vikings' pursuit to get up the draft board?
Yeah, it's interesting because what we have is basically 2 desperate teams. And I know that they're not going to portray themselves as desperate, and their fan base doesn't believe that they're desperate, but both of them are desperate. The Vikings are desperate because right now today, Sam Darnold is their starting quarterback, and that's not good if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you want to keep Justin Jefferson and the other talent that they have on the roster happy. So you've got to go out and find a quarterback that is not necessarily a star right away, but at the very least, a future guy that you can say, this is our cornerstone. Meanwhile, you have the Cardinals who have a premium pick, and they look to be in great shape, except for the fact that they have a lot of needs that one premium pick isn't going to solve. It could solve one position, and if by all accounts, it's going, the Cardinals love the wide receiver position because you've got to help Kyler Murray. But then what do you do with the defense?
Right.
Obviously, I know that they have another first-round pick. But 3 first-round picks is better than 2 first-round picks.
That's right. That's right.
And 3 first-round picks and a first-rounder next year, plus their first-rounder, is better than 2 first-round picks this year and 1 next year. So it's 2 teams that it behooves them to get something done.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, we're kind of team stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr., but we see that, as far as how Monty Ossenfort wants to build this thing, it's more in line with what you've reported as far as getting the haul of picks from the Minnesota Vikings and giving yourself draft capital in this talent-rich draft now and in the future. And he's just continually cooking with grease. He's never low on it, and he's always got the ingredients to cook up and draft and develop. That's mainly what they want to do. But when you look at this, and you say there's 2 desperate teams, but I look at the Minnesota Vikings, and I feel like they don't have any leverage, and that they've shown their entire hand here. They make the trade 3 weeks ago with the Houston Texans to acquire a second first round pick. They've got the void at quarterback, as you outlined. There's no way they can move forward with Sam Darnold. They struck out on trying to get up the draft board last year for Anthony Richardson. It just feels like Monty Ossenfort and the Arizona Cardinals have all the leverage. Do I have that wrong?
Well, I'm not sure that Kwesi would share your opinion. Adolfo Mensa, the general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, and this is his argument, right? So we both want to do this. We're the only team that can give you 2 first-rounders this year. There is nobody else. And end of story. We are that team. You can have 2 first-rounders this year. So let's do the 2 this year. And maybe instead of a first-rounder next year, how about a conditional 3? And if the guy plays a lot, it's a 2. And why wouldn't you do that? We're your friends. We love you. We're all guys here together. Let's do that. And by the way, if you don't do it, you're not picking a quarterback. We'll go to the Los Angeles Chargers, who have the number 5 pick, and go with them and do the trade with them. So do it with us. We're your pals. Come on.
Sure. I mean, that's a little persuasive, but then I can point to the New York Giants within striking distance at 6th overall. I know their GM saying, hey, like, we're anticipating 4 quarterbacks going off the board, but if one were to fall at 6, or if the price was right, we would get up to it. Maybe Monty Ossenfort's like, well, hey, I'll take a second rounder and I'll just fall back 2 spots and still be in a prime position to get a Harrison Jr., a Neighbors, and a Dunzy. I can still get pretty much the same I can get at 4, but maximizing the 4th overall pick. And then, as you mentioned, like you got Vegas, you got the Denver Broncos. Sure, they're not loaded up with the capital to make the best deal, but they are there, right? And they create kind of a competitive market. Don't you think that that's playing to the Cardinals' advantage?
Well, I think the feed here kind of crapped out here for a second, but I guess what you're saying is that there's multiple teams that are also in the loop, and
right.
That is true. You're absolutely correct. And look, there's a reason that here we are, I guess 2 weeks before the draft, and it hasn't happened, and nothing has happened. And if you ask the Cardinals publicly, which will happen eventually, they'll say, nothing's really cooking. And we'd love to keep our pick. That's gonna be the narrative. We really love this pick, because the last time that Austin Ford talked, it was, we're open. And it's a neon sign glowing. Now it's going to be, now we've got a fish on the hook. We need to dial back and show that fish that we're not interested in eating. So that would be the narrative, and I get it. And similarly, Adolfo Mensa is going to say, hey, you know what? We can pick at number 11 if we have to, and there's going to be quarterbacks there. And I'm sure that he won't say it, but, PHNX Jr. will come up and Bo Nix will come up, two guys that I'm not sure
they're not first rounders.
Definitely, I don't think Bo Nix is.
Right.
Honestly, to be very frank with you, JJ McCarthy.
I don't disagree. I don't think McCarthy is worth the haul, but at the same time, it feels like the Minnesota Vikings have shown that they have, legitimate interest, and they're, multiple reports are that they like multiple quarterbacks. If it's Drake May somehow and New England talks themselves into JJ McCarthy, even better for the Cardinals. But when you see this, as we wrap things up here with Armando Salguero, if the Vikings don't get a deal done, they're the loser in this, right? I mean, what's the point of going out and acquiring that second first-round pick? Kirk Cousins leaves for Atlanta. I know he's banged up, obviously, with the torn Achilles, and they've always wanted a little bit more from Captain Kirk, but it has to. The Vikings are in a tough spot here. They've backed themselves in the corner. If they come out and they stick and pick at 11 and 23, I think that they're going to have to. I mean, Paul Allen, the voice of the Vikings, said that it's going to be a toxic fan base.
Right. That assumes that they don't get a quarterback at some point. And if they do get a quarterback, I guarantee you that the narrative will be, this is the guy we wanted the whole time. Because if there's anything other than picking players that general managers and teams are good at, is setting the narrative on draft night. That we got our guy the whole time. He was our guy.
Mission accomplished, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so obviously, they will go forward and say, if it's PHNX, look, he was good. He was in the national championship game, and yes, he laid a huge egg, and it was problematic.
I mean, he's like 37 with 2 knee injuries, though. It's like, he makes some good big throws.
But Tom Brady played until 45, and so look
there's one guy that did it, right? There's one guy but at least they can point to him, and that's fine. It's and really enjoying our time with Armando here. Yeah, I mean, I just have to, when you think about it, they're trying to paint up, the 5th quarterback as the future, and then I do think that. And the one thing I disagreed with at the end of the article said that the Cardinals fan base would be maybe upset if they weren't able to pull off a deal for a haul. I mean, we talk this team every day. We talk with the fan base. They would be furious. This is a polarizing topic, obviously, because everybody's team Marv. And I think that if Monty Osfort, at the very end of the day, if he's trying to paint a picture of Marvin Harrison Jr. wearing an Arizona Cardinals uniform for the next decade, I think that's a little bit easier than trying to paint up Michael Penix Jr. as the 11th overall pick as your franchise quarterback.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
It would be a much easier narrative to tell, especially since his next time that he talks, it'll be, we we're fine with this pick. We're going to get a great player at this pick. So I get it. Look, it's the Cardinals have, if you're an old Jerry Seinfeld guy,
Yeah.
the Cardinals have hand. Okay. but
That's
on
right.
the other hand, they would like to do certain things as well. And I'm sure that having more talent is among that list.
Yeah, no doubt about it. More hacks at the plate to hit homers as far as the draft goes for somebody like Monty Ossenfort and the Arizona Cardinals as they try to expedite this rebuild. Armando Salguero has been doing it for a long time at a very high level, 30 years, 3 decades covering the NFL. He had the inside scoop as far as the cost, what it would take for the Cardinals to trade down with the Minnesota Vikings. Read it, outkick.com. Follow Armando at Armando Salguero on Twitter. Thanks, my man.
My pleasure.